At 4:58 a.m., federal agents executed warrants across 3 Arctic ports, 8 tons of cocaine. Government officials arrested.
4:58 a.m., Nuuk, Greenland. The temperature reads -22 Celsius. Arctic wind cuts across the harbor like surgical steel, and in the darkness, 18 federal vehicles are rolling silent toward coordinates that have been watched for 11 months.
18 tons
18
of
tons of
seized
cocaine,
in Greenland. You heard
3
that right.
compromised Arctic ports, and a security council that allegedly sold sovereignty for cartel cash. What the FBI uncovered wasn't just a drug bust. It was the systematic conversion of an entire governmental security apparatus into a narcotics superhighway. Tonight, we're going inside Operation Restore Justice, the largest institutional infiltration case ever prosecuted in the North Atlantic corridor. And what you're about to hear will redefine everything you thought you knew about Arctic sovereignty. Hit like right now so this investigation reaches every corner of the internet. Because this story is being actively suppressed. Let me show you why. January 14th, 2025. The FBI's International Corruption Unit receives an encrypted file from a whistleblower inside Greenland's Port Authority. The file contains 47 pages of shipping manifests, container codes, timestamps, and something else. Biometric access logs showing the same 5 officials entering restricted cargo zones at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., always outside surveillance windows, always on nights when specific vessels docked from Cartagena, Buenaventura, and Lima. The patterns were surgical, the timing was flawless, and the authorization signatures came from the Greenland Security Council itself. Within 72 hours, the FBI escalates to DEA. DEA brings in ICE. ICE coordinates with DHS, and a joint task force assembles in absolute silence. Because if the Security Council was compromised, one leak would torch the entire operation. For 11 months, they watched, they tracked, they documented, and on the morning of the raid, they brought 100 federal agents, not to arrest a cartel, to dismantle a government. 4:32 a.m., the first breach, a warehouse complex on the industrial edge of Nuuk, officially registered as Arctic Cold Chain Logistics AS, a seafood export company processing halibut, cod, and shrimp for European markets. The company's tax records showed clean revenue. Their inspections passed without issue. Their employees had spotless backgrounds, but their refrigeration units were pulling 8 times the power required for frozen fish. Tactical teams hit the doors with battering rams. Flashbangs detonate inside steel corridors. Agents pour through in synchronized waves, weapons raised, radios crackling with call signs. Within 90 seconds, they've secured the perimeter. Within 4 minutes, they've found the first hidden cavity. A false floor beneath industrial freezer units, steel panels welded to look like structural support, and underneath, vacuum-sealed bricks stamped with scorpion symbols. Cocaine, hundreds of kilos, stacked with the precision of Tetris blocks. One agent radios, "We've got product," multiple pallets. Then another voice cuts in, "We've got more, a lot more." Because the false floor wasn't the only cavity. There were 3. By 5:21 a.m., field agents are calling in preliminary counts. 4 tons, 7 tons, 12 tons, and then the number that changes everything. 18 metric tons of pure cocaine. Street value, $1.8 billion. That's enough to supply the entire eastern seaboard for 6 months. Comment expose if you think every official involved should face maximum sentences. But the cocaine wasn't the end game. It was the clue. Because at 4:34 a.m., a second team breached a facility 3 kilometers away, a private security operations center listed under the Greenland Security Council's procurement division. Armed guards, biometric locks, encrypted server rooms humming with the sound of constant data flow. The guards surrendered without resistance. Too fast, too calm, like they'd been expecting this. Inside, agents found a room with no windows, a server rack generating enough heat to warm the entire building, fiber optic cables running into the floor like roots. And when they pulled the access panels, they didn't find a security database. They found a command center. Digital ledgers tracking shipments across 14 countries. Transaction logs showing cash flows through shell corporations in Denmark, Iceland, the Netherlands, and Panama. Encrypted communication archives containing thousands of messages between cartel coordinators and officials using code names like Polar, Iceberg, and Frost. And then the forensic team found the authorization keys. digital signatures embedded in port access logs, customs clearance overrides, inspection waivers. Every single one traced back to 5 senior members of the Greenland Security Council. These weren't rogue employees. These were the architects. They hadn't been bribed by the cartel. They had become the cartel. 6:07 a.m., FBI Cyber Forensics Lab, Washington, D.C. Analysts are pulling data from drives seized in Nuke. The encryption is military-grade, multi-layer AES-256, with dead man triggers designed to wipe everything if breached incorrectly. But the FBI had been preparing for this. They deployed a custom decryption protocol built specifically for cartel-grade security systems. It takes 4 hours, but bit by bit, the files open, and what emerges is a blueprint, a network diagram labeled Project White Fjord. At the center, Greenland, not as a transit point, as the headquarters, radiating outward, connections to logistics firms in Rotterdam, shipping companies in Reykjavik, trucking contractors in Copenhagen, and agricultural exporters in northern Scotland. Every node was a front, every company was a shell, and the money didn't just flow, it flooded. Over $420 million laundered in 18 months through fake environmental grants, Arctic research foundations, and infrastructure modernization contracts. The cartel wasn't paying bribes, it was funding government budgets. One file labeled Phase Anchor outlined a 10-year plan to convert Greenland into a permanent logistics fortress for the Arctic-Atlantic cocaine corridor. Protected by institutional authority, defended by compromised officials, and shielded by the appearance of sovereignty. This wasn't corruption, this was colonization. Tap like if this is the most disturbing case you've ever heard. 7:12 a.m. The second wave launches. Over 60 simultaneous raids across Greenland and Denmark. SWAT teams, maritime units, helicopter support, armored vehicles built for sub-zero operations. They hit a gravel yard near a remote port where shipping containers were swapped under cover of machinery storage. They stormed a hillside compound with heated garages where cartel coordinators lived like corporate executives, protected by private security carrying suppressed weapons. They breached a transit house with bare mattresses and no personal items, a human smuggling waypoint connected to the same logistics network. Because the cartel didn't just move cocaine, it moved people. Migrants from West Africa and South America trafficked through Arctic routes to evade southern border scrutiny. Human suffering as operational camouflage. And as teams rolled up these locations, the seizures stacked fast. More cocaine, crystal meth in industrial packaging, fentanyl pills counted by the millions, firearms with thermal optics, cash bricks stacked floor to ceiling. But the most critical arrests weren't cartel members, they were officials. 10:44 a.m., investigators begin combing through seized communications, internal emails, port access logs, patrol schedules, maintenance records, and the pattern is undeniable. Border surveillance grids altered not randomly, but surgically. Inspection shutdowns timed to the exact minute of priority shipments. Maintenance closures at way stations coinciding with convoy arrivals. Somebody was coordinating from inside, not one rogue agent, an entire network. Port inspectors who flagged clean containers that were anything but clean. Border agents who delayed interdictions until shipments cleared. Contract security teams with quasi-official authority who escorted cartel personnel through government checkpoints. Administrative staff who controlled access lists and buried oversight requests. And 2 legal gatekeepers who could delay warrants, redirect investigations, and bury evidence. They were paid through consulting retainers, training stipends, and security bonuses, money with clean labels, dirty purpose. One federal investigator, a 23-year veteran, stared at the scheduling data in silence. He didn't shout, he didn't curse, he just walked out of the room. Because the betrayal wasn't external, it was internal. They'd been hunting shadows while their own infrastructure guided the cartel through the front door. By midday, the arrests begin. 3 Greenland Security Council executives taken into custody from government offices, 2 dragged from private residences where encrypted phones sat next to official badges, 4 Denmark-linked officials detained as political shockwaves ripple through Copenhagen, ministers calling emergency sessions, diplomats scrambling for damage control, and the cartel members? 17 arrested, 9 still at large. But the operation's real target wasn't street-level smugglers. It was the system that protected them. Federal prosecutors are preparing RICO charges. Conspiracy to traffic narcotics, money laundering, bribery of public officials, and something rarely prosecuted at this level, institutional treason. Because this wasn't failure. This was design. The system didn't collapse. It was rebuilt to serve the cartel. Comment, justice. If you believe every compromised official should spend life in prison. Zoom out now. Because Greenland was never the whole story, it was the prototype. Cartel strategists had identified a vulnerability in the global system. Remote jurisdictions, low oversight, high strategic value. Arctic shipping lanes don't get the same scrutiny as southern borders. Infrastructure projects move billions in funding without the same transparency. And in a region where weather is harsh and populations are small, it's easy to assume nothing big could happen. But that assumption is exactly what made it possible. Project White Fjord wasn't just about moving drugs. It was about proving a model. If you can compromise Greenland, you can compromise Iceland, Norway, northern Canada. You can turn the Arctic into a superhighway that bypasses every traditional enforcement corridor, and you can do it while wearing government badges. Here's the file that was never meant to be seen. Phase anchor, buried in encrypted directories, outlined a 15-year timeline. Year 1 through 3, establish logistics infrastructure and compromise key officials. Year 4 through 7, expand operational capacity and integrate government procurement cycles. Year 8 through 15, achieve institutional permanence through infrastructure grants, security modernization budgets, and political influence. The cartel wasn't thinking in shipments. It was thinking in generations. A shadow government not installed by coup, installed by budget line items and procurement contracts. And the most terrifying part? They almost succeeded. If that whistleblower hadn't sent those 47 pages, Operation Restore Justice never happens. The network expands, the infrastructure becomes permanent, and the Arctic becomes cartel territory. Protected not by guns, but by law. So what does this mean? It means corruption doesn't always announce itself with violence. Sometimes it wears a suit. Sometimes it carries a badge. Sometimes it sits in government meetings and votes on budgets. The most dangerous criminals aren't always the ones holding guns. Sometimes they're the ones writing policy. And the cost isn't abstract. It's measured in communities destroyed by fentanyl, families shattered by addiction, migrant lives traded like cargo. It's measured in the erosion of trust, in the quiet normalization of institutional rot. Because when the people sworn to protect you are the ones enabling your destruction, where do you turn? Operation Restore Justice seized 18 tons of cocaine, over 900 kilograms of meth, 4 million fentanyl pills, 42 firearms, and $87 million in cash and assets. But the real victory wasn't the drugs, it was the exposure. It was proving that no matter how cold the corridor, how remote the location, how high the office, corruption can be dragged into the light. If you made it this far, hit like so this story spreads. Drop expose in the comments if you want every layer investigated. Share this video so the world knows what was hidden in the Arctic. Because this isn't over. The arrests are just the beginning. Federal investigators are now looking at parallel networks in Iceland, Norway, and northern Scotland. The cartel didn't just build one fortress, it built a system. And the fight to dismantle it has only just started. This is the FBI files, this is the truth they tried to bury. And we're not stopping until every official, every cartel member, every compromised agent faces justice. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and never stop demanding the truth.